Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of the Men of Steel podcast where we talk about Superman and Superman adjacent topics. If you enjoy this clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your shows. Meanwhile, Superboy is already linked up with Lex Luthor and working for Lex Luthor. And it's weird only when you stop to think that he escaped and that there's never a point where it's like, well, why did he come back to Lex, or why did he get wooed over by Lex to be working for him that way? In the comics, he's on the run from Cadmus and like fully like trying to avoid them because he doesn't want to become a lab experiment. And in this scenario, he's just like completely gone right back to them. But he definitely escaped because if he wasn't an escaped Superman clone, then they would have grown him up to full age.
Or like in the case of Young Justice, where he was broken out and then like kept having dealings with Cadmus and then just eventually was like, I have to face them at some point because there's unanswered questions about myself.
Exactly. And I like some of the design choices for Superboy. I like that his eyes look like Lex Luthor's blue eyes instead of Superman's blue eyes. Like, that's a subtle difference right there that works by having
the light blue instead of the deep blue.
Yeah, like that's a really nice detail there. We get good use of Ma and Pa Kent still being alive so that he can settle with them as Connor at the end. That's appreciated. Like, I like his design. You know, at the end of the first of Death, it looks like he's going to have the New 52 look, like the black costume with like the red accents. And instead he's wearing much more like his original costume. But I like the black pants. I think that actually works really well on his design.
I missed the boots and the original jacket. It was badass, man.
While we don't get the big red components of the costume that the classic Superboy outfit still got to engage with, I thought it looked pretty good. Like, I immediately clocked the Lex Luthor icon on his jacket. I was like, that's weird that he has that. That's strange. And then it's like, oh, he works for Lex Luthor. Okay, that's we're already there. Okay, cool. I thought overall, like, his arc is mostly fine. You know, him trying to be like a celebrity and whatnot it's cool enough. And he's legitimately like a character that we expect to behave that way. I enjoyed that all the lines he thought were cool are programmed in him by Lex Luthor and Dabney Donovan, who are not cool. And so like all the things are like also 20 years out of date.
Yeah, Luthor has that throwaway line of Dabney's been letting you watch those 90s sitcoms again.
Oh yeah.
Also,
and actually, that's kind of like a nice touch of like, we're adapting a story from the 90s, so we're going to have 90s sitcom lingo here because someone likes the 90s sitcoms.
Yeah. And it allowed us to have the exact moment of when they're all going off to face the cyborg Superman, and he's like, Slammin!
Yeah.
And it's like, do people not say that anymore? Because that is exactly what he said in that same scene. So it's like, oh, it's nice that we get to have the same line, but now it's like, man, that line hasn't aged. Like in universe that we can actually like look at it being like, oh yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, honestly, I think of all the Supermen, everything going on with Hank Hinshaw is really great just because he has his little setup in Death, and then like the slow realization, like if you haven't read the comic like I have, like the slow realization that the cyborg Superman is Hank is really great. And then Steel, like everything going on with Steel is great.
Also, two things. Mercy needs to retire.
Yeah, absolutely. She has been through too much shit.
Mercy
that poor woman
needs to retire. He's like, thanks for what? This clack. And then how does no one recognize Lois Lane after all these years? Because Dabney was like, hey. And I'm like, Lex has to have posters around the offices and like, hey, avoid this woman at all costs.
Oh, you know for a fact
if you see her, report her immediately.
But Dabney is such a piece of shit that like he doesn't care.
It's like, how? She's like, oh, hi. I'm like, clearly everyone should know it's Lois by now.
Also, we have to answer the very important question. Did Dabney deserve it?
Oh, the what they call Bizarro clones at the end?
A nice nod, by the way. Does Dabney deserve it?
Nice
yes,
nod.
Dabney always deserves whatever comes to him because Dabney's a piece of shit.
Exactly. Okay, I just want to make sure we were on the same page there.
I want to push back a little bit on saying that like Henshaw and Steel are both like great because I have like minor issues with both. Like,
did I say great? I just meant they were good.
Okay, so Steel,
I got cut off.
I really like the setup of Steel being in the first one. I think that works really well. I don't love that he just has straight up an Iron Man setup.
Yeah, it is like, okay, dude, you've been doing this for 6 months. You need to chill.
Like, he's got straight up, like, the Avengers 1, like, take apart Iron Man sequence there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's my one bummer, because, like, what I liked about Steel, and admittedly, he's not doing the same thing of being, like, laying low and, like, building the armor out of, like, scraps, but in a basement, not a cave. Like, so we are losing that element there, and so, sure, he's got better tech because he's, like, actively working for LexCorp.
I like the working man aspect of Steel
Right.
from the comics.
Right, and I kind of
And
miss that.
it's kind of lost in this movie.
Yeah.
It's lost in this movie a bit.
Yeah.
Like, why does he have the hammer? We never get into the John Henry stuff. Like, sure, if you're smart and you know that John Henry is the hammer guy from folklore, like, that's all there. But, like, it would be nice to have some moments, like, where we kind of contextualize that. Like, he is fine, except it's like, oh, man, like, he's just a little too advanced. Like, I wish that he was putting it all together. Like,
just go back to Steel from Superman the Animated Series. Like, the way they did that was great.
I mean, even if it was just pieces that he had to, like, put on, like, the fact that he's got, like, a disassembling machine was just like, oh,
it's insane.
It's too much Iron Man already.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, a minor issue on that one. And then, like, then he's, like, pretty fine after that point. It's like, I like that Lois is, like, immediately knows who he is.
Yeah.
But there's...
Also, she's like moonlighting as Batman, sneaking people's houses and stuff like that. She's like, oh, you left your window open. I was like, wait a second.
I mean, Lois Lane is just a better Batman.
Apparently so.
I mean, she's the only one that Batman knocks on the door for.
Oh, she saw him in the lab too? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who scares the bat?
Yep.
Lois Lane.
Yep.
Remember, if you like the clip, after you're done liking and subscribing, check out certainpov.com, where you can find more episodes of the show, as well as a ton of other great shows.